me a go when you're ready to row.
Okay.
And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. A lot of great things going on during the week that was, as we'll get into those and talk also probably a little Olympics today as well, since it seems to have our rapt attention here at Cardinal Couple as it's gone on this week. Almost a full house today with you as we've got Case, Jared, Jeff, and myself, Paulie. Daryl is out on appointments, from what we understand. So I'm not really sure what that entails. If she shows up at your door, you must have an appointment with her, I guess. We'll see what happens there. But a lot of good things going on this week in the world of sports. And we'll just kind of catch up with the guys a little bit. Jared was telling us a little bit earlier about some things that were going on with him. Yes, he's been busy taking some photos and doing some other things as well. What's going on, Jared?
Uh, Not much. Took a few days off from taking pictures and thought I was gonna be picking back up this weekend until you get the text from people like, hey, I'm feeling a little sick, or hey, I've been exposed to a coworker with COVID. It's like, oh, okay. Well, no photography for me again, but just more time to sit back, relax, watch more Olympics, which is kind of what I've been doing when I'm not working. Then we went and saw the new Jungle Cruise movie yesterday, Katie and I, and thoroughly enjoyed it, and enjoyed some of the references to the Jungle Cruise ride down at Disney.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a good movie there. I haven't seen it yet, but saw the previews for it and looked like it could be some fun. So get out and catch that one if you're not busy watching the Olympics. Case in the house with us today. Case, what's going on out in Shelbyville?
Not a lot, not a lot. Had the annual HOA meeting earlier this week, so that was fun. Actually, a lot less drama than expected. So it's always nice to not have to deal with things that you think you're going to have to deal with. But other than that, went out, got some gelato last night. That was fun. Wondered why the roads will be closed downtown for parking later today. Maybe a parade of some kind, but I will not be going to try and figure that out. I will stay home and maybe try to install a bathroom vanity finally.
Sounds like a major task going on with you, dude.
Yeah, it's IKEA, and plumbing in Sweden is a little bit different than here. And so there's going to be some significant pipe work that needs to be done, which is why this task has dragged on for probably going on nearly 6 months now.
Pipe work and I don't get along. I call a plumber. But anyway. Jeff McAdams in the house as well, too. Jeff, the video system seems to be working pretty good here for OBS Ninja, right?
Yeah, doing pretty well. We had went back and listened to both the YouTube of the live mix and then a little bit to the podcast recording that Case put together where he normalizes and tweaks a little bit on the audio, and both I think sounded pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with how it's going, and excited to be able to kind of step up our audio game here a little bit. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Other than that, I've been house, dog, cat, and gecko sitting for my brother and sister-in-law this week. So
It's quite the combination there, huh?
yeah, it really is. Every time I house sit for them, the set of animals is different. It varies over time. So like, how do you take care of a gecko? So my brother left me instructions. It's great. So no problem. It's very easy. In fact,
Foremost, how do you take care of a gecko?
Yeah, that's the major question.
Do you have to make sure they have the right car insurance?
Yeah. No, they've got these little plastic cups of gecko food that you put one in there every other day or so and make sure they have water, and then adjust lights because they're what's the word, crepuscular. They come out at sundown, so adjust the lights so that they know when when dude can come out and enjoy his time out of his little hidey hole.
There you go.
Yeah.
Things on my end are going fairly well. Just hanging in there. A couple of doctor's appointments as they're trying to figure out what exactly is wrong with the old Polly here, but feeling pretty good today. No problem. It's just a little nauseous earlier this morning, but that's because I knew I had to talk to Jeff and Case earlier. Got me sick, but no, I can just get in there. Things are going pretty well, so we'll hang in there with it. But it's the time of the show where we get into a little scheduling and Twitter information. Case handles that for us, so take it away, Maestro.
Yeah, like we mentioned last week, the schedule this week's still bare. No announcements of any exhibition games for women's soccer like we thought might come. If they do come during this next week, it'll probably be Saturday evening. So then on next week's show, we'll get to talk about it. And I will not be in attendance because I'll be at a concert next Saturday evening. So any game that they have, gonna miss out on that one. But after this week is the last week where we don't get to talk about anything. I will milk the opportunity to talk about the women's soccer opener and the men's soccer opener on the 14th, even though they'll both take place after the show on the 14th. So we'll talk about them twice. But yeah, nothing yet. We'll talk a little bit about some scheduling that's a lot further out, some newly announced scheduling for women's basketball with a early season game there. But as for our Twitter accounts, I tweet is at best case scenario, BST case scenario. Jared is at Mr. Anderson Jared. Polly is at Cardinal Couple, and Jeff is at Card Couple Radio and at Jeff McAdams. You can also follow Daryl at Daryl Faust 4 to see where she is whenever she wants to leave us alone, be without us. And then, as always, you can follow the Twitter panel on the right side of the Cardinal Couple website to follow along with all of the UofL women's athletics accounts. A great way to get results on some of the odd resulting sports outside of just, the traditional game flows. But that's it, scheduling and Twitter.
All good information.
Starting tomorrow, man. You go look at the UofL composite calendar. There's actually going to be stuff on it, though, by default, without having to shift months.
Without having to click one button to get to the next month, like I did earlier today.
Yeah, it's kind of a milestone, to see that happen.
Yeah, we always look forward to the time when we know when stuff's going on, and certainly that's a good source to figure it out there. And make sure and follow all the guys on Twitter if you can. I've been kind of quiet on Twitter lately, not a whole lot going on that I felt necessary to report on, but certainly do enjoy reading other people's tweets out there and watching some of the banter and interchange that goes on with those. So we got a lot of fun stuff lined up today on the show. Let's go ahead and start it out with basketball. That's right, we've got basketball at the end of July, guys, women's basketball. As we found out earlier this week that the Louisville women's basketball squad will be going to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to play a very, very challenging Arizona in the Invitational up there. A game to be played on November 12th, part of a doubleheader, where South Carolina will also make the trip up and play host school South Dakota up there, guys. This is a one-day doubleheader. Looks pretty exciting to me. Going to be on ESPN somewhere, and also tickets on sale. Jeff, I'll tell you what, a tough start out for the Cards here for 2021.
Yeah, I'm sure this is part of, Jeff Wells does a lot of, like we talked about previously with volleyball and with field hockey and other sports, trying to schedule tough teams. Not that our conference schedule is weak by any means in women's basketball, but out of conference scheduling tough teams as prep and getting ready for trying to develop the team over time for postseason play. Arizona's a very fine team and will provide us a great challenge right out of the gate. Hopefully, even if we lose that, it's a possibility to learn what needs to be done from the very beginning and where the team is, get kind of a benchmark for future improvement. So I think we have a very good shot of winning it, but it's going to be, you've got a good team is a good challenge. It's always good to have right out of the gate, I think.
We were looking at a little earlier. Case was doing some research on this. The Cards are in the way too early ESPN poll top 25 rankings. The Cards coming at number 6. They will be playing a school from Arizona that is not ranked in the top 25. Jared, South Carolina will be up there at number 2, and South Dakota, the host school, at 25. This is just a nice tournament altogether, and it'll be a nice early test for the Cards, I think.
Yeah, it'd be a fun little trip for them, and as I think Case or Jeff mentioned, getting that out of conference experience and play early on, it really will help build up the strength of schedule. Some of the things you look at with your RPI strength of schedule, net rankings, whatever they're using now, is some of your away sites and neutral site games, and they want to see that you can win on the road away from home. Obviously, playing at home, that home field advantage it's a nice key, but Arizona's a team that's made the tournament plenty of times in the past, has experience. I don't know if we get to play both South Carolina and South Dakota.
No.
I think we're just traveling all up there for like a little mini days, what it looked like.
Yeah.
I wish if Walls could find a way to squeeze in one of those two teams
Yeah,
early on as well, just to see
South
how we
Carolina,
can match up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to see how we can match up against them, and it kind of gives us a better feel of where our team will be sitting and what adjustments need to be made going forward. But still, Arizona's going to be a tough team playing on the road, especially early on, with some newer faces on the team as everybody's getting adjusted and acquainted with each other. Will be a bit of a challenge.
A challenge indeed.
Do we know what time of day this is? I'm going to assume evening, but
I was looking for that earlier, and I thought I saw that, but maybe I missed it. I'll look real quick again and see if I can find out what time it is, but no, I don't see it. I guess the times will be announced later on, as well as ticket sales for it as well will be announced later on, as they'll be playing in the Pentagon, not in Washington, D.C., no, but the Pentagon up there on the Sanford Pentagon on campus for them. A nice little arena up there, holding about 3,200, and they have a lot of different events in there, including volleyball and some other events as well. Augustana University women's basketball plays their games there also, if you're familiar with them.
yeah.
So should be a good event for the Cards, and I think it will show Louisville very early on that what they've kind of got and what they need to work on and some of the things they need to do. I just kind of find it funny that fellas, Arizona made it to the final game last year, and they're not even ranked in the top 25. I find that kind of interesting. Did graduation hit them that hard? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that had something to do with it. They definitely had one of the top 5 picks in the WNBA draft, if I remember correctly. I haven't pulled that up, so that's just pulling it off the top of my head, and my memory's not great. But I think that they exceeded expectations to become that national runner-up last year. And so when you take away Ari McDonald in particular, who was the driving force behind that team, and a couple of other of their key contributors, I don't think it's any surprise that, well, maybe it's a little bit of a surprise, but I don't think it's terribly shocking that they be not considered one of the top 25 teams for now. I think that this will be quadrant 1 win for the net rankings. I don't remember if they're still doing those. Like Jared mentioned, I remember some conversation about that late last year. Maybe they're backing off of that. But if they are still doing the net rankings, I assume Arizona will be in the top 50. And since this is going to be a neutral site game, that would be a quadrant 1 game as long as they remain in the top 50. So, like you said, not in the top 25, but I think it's still going to be a good look for how Louisville stacks up, because they're also trying to replace some key players, or a key player in particular. So we'll get a good look at how Louisville's team looks for this season and how Arizona's team looks going forward.
Yeah, and they do have Arizona has Lauren Ware, who's from that area up there, so she'll be kind of getting back into the area from where she's from to play for, of course, a very, very strong Arizona team that's coached by Ida Barnes. Should be fun for the Cards to see how they do up there in that competition.
And UofL's press release called out that Sydney Shetland is from Sioux Falls, so up there as well.
Yes,
So
indeed they did. But I was reading that article, Jeff, and they have a Sydney being from that area up there, Sioux Falls, Washington.
oops. Yeah, she's definitely Sioux Falls, South Dakota, is where she's from. Yeah.
Since I was going to text Nick on that and say, when did Sioux Falls move to Washington? And
I will say I was looking at this on a map. I wanted to see the Sanford Pentagon, and it is certainly a 5-sided building, which is interesting. But it is literally right next to the Sioux Falls Regional Airport. You can literally walk from one place to the other easily. So interesting. So it sounds like it'll be some easy travels up there. So
Did she go to Washington High School?
that's possible.
Because that's a high school in Sioux Falls.
yeah, I think that's where Shedden went to, wasn't it?
Yeah, that may
may
be
have
what they
been
said,
the source
yeah.
of the confusion.
Yeah.
Possibly so. Of Sioux Falls, Washington. Anyway, that Cards will be taking
Yeah,
part in that.
Washington High School is what she went to. Yeah.
Said, of course, they had a very great career up there, not only in basketball, but also in volleyball as well.
Yep.
So we'll look forward to see what they can do. More basketball news as well, as we found out that Louisville got their 5th commit to the class of 2022 that came out. Baltimore wing, 6 foot tall Jalen Brown said yes to the Cardinals. Some great stuff there on her. She played at St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. And I'll let you guys guess who else played at St. Francis Academy that we know quite well.
I think that was where Angel went, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Angel McCoptry played at that academy as well. So another one out of there for us. She came down to Louisville last month, had a nice little visit, and then gave the Cards a commitment after considering us, North Carolina State, and Maryland. 3 very, very good schools, obviously. And we got her as the number 83 ranked player in the class of 2022, and number 12 overall wing by ESPN, and number 5 player in the state of Maryland. So certainly a good get for the Cards there. And, Jared, we take a look at some of these recruits that are coming in the class of 2022. Brown is 6 foot. Could add some depth to the Cards because there's going to be a pretty strong class coming in. You've got 5 players coming in this class, but she sounds like one that could really make a difference for us.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, but you also look at, you've got some players that are set to be wrapping up their UofL careers here soon. Mikasa Robinson being one of them. Kiana Smith, who had transferred in, doesn't have a lot of eligibility left. You could look at the slight potential. You don't really see a lot of women's basketball players go pro early, but you may look at the slight potential that someone could sneak in there and go pro early. Right now, I kind of doubt it, but also a lot of the players that I'm thinking of just wrapped up their freshman year, so plenty of development room. Liz Dixon doesn't really have a lot of eligibility left, so you've got to replace some players here. And it's nice to see he's going tall. I think Jeff Wells is finally starting to, you're seeing he's adapting to this new tall style, the new era of basketball, where all the top teams have been bringing in some great height. You see that with UConn a lot. We've seen it with Stanford when we played them. Oregon had some height when we played them. It's just the new era, and you're going to see more and more taller players come in to the point that here in a few years I'm going to be looking, like I live in Munchkin Land when I'm out there on the court next to him.
As Smith joins a class so far of Nyla Harris, who's ranked 28th by ESPN in the class of 2022. Wing Alexa Mobley, we've been following her a lot on Twitter and such. 31st by the ESPN group. We've also got point guard Diana Walker out of Wichita, Kansas, number 30 in the ESPN rankings. And a very, very good center in Raleigh, North Carolina's post, Amani Lester, who was 50th overall in the nation by ESPN. 5 good players coming in for the Cards, so we certainly look forward to what they can do. And Jeff Walls just keeps them coming, doesn't he, Jeff?
Yeah, he really does. This may be the superpower of this coaching staff is some really excellent recruiting. That's a big part of you got to have the talent to be able to put together a really competitive team, and they figured out how to do it. They figured out how to go where they need to go, including into rural, eastern Washington or South Dakota or Japan or all these places where they've gone to recruit some high talent players, and that's a big part of building a successful program is to have the raw materials to work with.
I was trying to think back the last time we had a recruiting class of 5 players, and maybe it's just my memory, maybe it's my mind that's going on me. But I'm reaching back a few years, guys, and I can't come up with a year where we had actually 5. And so,
Hmm, good question.
When you look at this roster for this season, and it's not, I don't know how many of these have some extra years of eligibility, but Louisville's got 2, 3, 4 listed seniors, a listed redshirt senior, and a grad transfer in Chelsea Hall. So there's potentially, I think that there is some extra years of eligibility tucked in there somewhere, but I think there's potential for quite a bit of turnover after this season. So you're going to have plenty of scholarship and roster spots to fill, which is why you see next year such a large class, and we may also see some more transfers because that five-person freshman class wouldn't fill all of those spots if all of those players are gone at the end of the year.
one of the things about the transfer portal is you never know what's going to come out of that. And the Cards have certainly benefited from it and getting some very good players out of it so far. So we'll keep an eye on that as well as the commit list for transfer for high school players coming in. Should be good for Louisville women's basketball coming up there. As I haven't seen anything much lately on what's going on with Peyton Verhulst, though, who is over with the USA. I think was a U19 team. My memory's
Yes.
a little foggy on that. Kind of fill us
They
in on that a little bit.
they haven't posted too much about that, but sometimes you'll see when they do a lot of their international travel and play, you don't get the updates like you do when you're here in the States, and you've got a little more media where anybody could be out there and throw out a quick tweet or Facebook post.
I know that her dad was pretty excited about the way that Jeff Walls had built her up. So obviously the strength and conditioning coach is working with her a little bit to put a little muscle and put a little weight
So
onto it.
I think the last class we had of 5 or more freshmen is 2016, 2017. You've got Sid Zambrata, Kylie Shook, Jasmine Jones, Jessica Limley, Bianca Dunham, and Sierra Johnson all came in as freshmen that year. That's
Oh
6.
gosh,
Actually. Yeah.
yeah, that does go back a ways.
Yeah.
Of course, Sierra Johnson ended up leaving as well as Sydney Zambrata, and
Yep.
I think Zambrata is still playing, if I remember.
I think she just finished.
Which is
I'm
kind
not
of
sure.
weird for the
She was
class
at
of 2000.
what? George Washington, I think is where she went.
Yeah, she had to sit
Yeah.
out a year, and then I think had an injury, if I'm not mistaken, too. So she might be getting ready to play her last year.
Okay.
But that was a heck of a class right there.
Yeah.
Poor. As we move on
Little
into a
follow
little
up,
bit of
just real quick on Peyton Verhulst and that U19 team. So they left. They closed training camp on July 27th. So I guess that was Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Ended training camp on Tuesday, packed up and headed to Europe, presumably to begin that quarantine period. Their first game will be against Italy next Saturday, August the 7th.
so maybe it'll be in time for us to talk a little bit about what's going on with that on our radio show then. Very good.
It's not clear what time is listed in the site that I'm looking at, whether that's local or I assume that is like Eastern time, like it's adjusted to my local time because one of the games listed is starting at 5 a.m. And I don't think that they're starting at 5 a.m. to
I
play
would
that
hope
game.
not.
So that would mean that Italy USA game is at 2:30 p.m. So that'll be after we air.
The whole time thing that's been going on the last couple of weeks, guys, has gotten me kind of baffled and confused because Tokyo is 13 hours ahead of us.
Yep.
And so it's trying to figure out, okay, they're playing this time in Tokyo. What time is it here? I've been
Yeah.
baffled by that all week.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because it's already tomorrow morning there.
Yeah.
If you go to, I've been going to NBC's website for a lot of that, and it's been giving me, you can
Local
set it where
times.
it'll give you the local time to
Yeah.
kind of make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, so I just went to the actual FIBA basketball website, and they're actually giving the times in local and your own. So I can confirm that Italy USA game is at 8:30 p.m. Local time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Is when Louisville, or not Louisville, Louisville's Peyton Verhulst will play her first game for USA in that tournament.
We'll certainly be watching that one closely to see how she does over there with the USA squad. In other UofL athletics news for the women's side, the Cardinal golf team has a new assistant coach in Rob Bennett. Joining the team as an assistant, he comes to Louisville after spending the last 3 years at Abilene Christian. That's a school we don't hear about very much. He'll be coming in to assist, of course, the Louisville team over there. Whitney Young bringing him in. I'm assuming that Dory Carter, who was the previous assistant coach there, has gone back onto the LPGA Tour. Just from what I've been able to read, U of L didn't make much of a mention on what happened to Dory or why she decided to step away from her position. But it looks like Rob Bennett can do some good things here. As when he was at Abilene Christian, the Wildcats rose over 60 spots in the national rankings, setting school records in scoring average, low single round scores, and also low tournament scores under his guidance. So he's done some great things there. Certainly a golf team that's going to be kind of trying to, I think, Jeff, look to see who's going to be the new leader now that Lauren Hartledge has graduated.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't follow our golf team all that closely, but try to keep up with some overall results. But obviously, with Lauren Hartledge going on to bigger and better things and great success, which is great to be able to cheer for her. Continue to cheer for her. The team's going to be looking for who's kind of the next person up there. Now, obviously, golf scoring as an event is multiple the conglomeration of multiple scores together. So you're not necessarily looking for an all-star standout player if you can get everybody to be playing well. Um, Louisville has seen some success in past tournaments where no individual player necessarily did really well on the leaderboard, but everyone did reasonably well, so the team standings ends up being pretty high. So, there's multiple ways to attack that. So, it's always good to get some fresh eyes in on a situation to look at it.
We'll be watching to see how he does with the cards, and we'll maybe try to get down there on campus and see if we can get a couple words with him as well and bring that to you at the website. Moving, I guess, on over to a little bit of Olympic news. In past years, of course, the cards have had some multitude of swimmers on the women's side who have been doing great things in the Olympics. Swimmers such as Kelsey Worrell, Mallory Comerford. But this year, case it looks like we got maybe only one Cardinal women's swimmer in the Olympics in the semifinals.
Yeah, UofL saw a lot of representation in swimming in this year's Olympics, but it was primarily on the men's side, which is a little bit not what we're used to. But they've had some success. No medals that I remember. A couple of finals appearances for some of those swimmers. But Tatiana Salkatian, I believe, probably not pronouncing that right, is Moldovan, so almost definitely not pronouncing that correctly. But she's the only Louisville women's swimmer to have made the games this year. like I said, representing Moldova. She was swimming in the 200-meter backstroke, and she made the semifinals yesterday, where she touched 11th overall between the two heats, 3 seconds off the pace of the leaders. They were just cruising. Two Americans and an Aussie in the top three. Um, but it is no slouch to be a sophomore in college and make the semifinals in the Olympics. So she may be another name that we're looking for in 2024, shortly after finishing her U of L career, to see what a former Cardinal will do moving forward. Excited to see if she's going to be the next big name that we're used to seeing come out of U of L swimming.
Certainly hope that she can do good things for the Cards as well as do good things in the Olympics over there. We'll be kind of keeping an eye on what's up with her as we look into some other things that are going on. We turn to women's field hockey, where our fantastic former Card, as Justine Sowry would tell you, perhaps the best goaltender in field hockey, Aisha McFerrin with the Irish squad, but it kind of looks like that they didn't do so well with Aisha in goalkeep, huh?
I don't think it
I
was
don't think
Aisha's
it's
fault.
that Aisha's fault. Like I see, it was just the team couldn't get out of group play, a few losses, and one of them was that really bad loss to the Netherlands, where they really kind of poured it on Aisha. Not really her fault, but just how they broke down the Irish defense so bad. So the Irish are done. Team Ireland, whatever you want to call them at this point. So Aisha's 2020 Olympic career has concluded, but I have to assume that she will be back for 2024. I mean, with her skill set, and field hockey isn't one of those where you are considered old in your late 20s like you'll see with track and field and swimming and some other sports. So this is another thing she should have at least one or two more Olympics in her.
We would certainly hope so because she's certainly so fun to watch out there, and also, when you're that good, you'd like to see maybe Ireland get a little further because of our Cardinal there. We'll see what happens for them next 4 years.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need to add some offense over the next 4
Yeah,
years.
what was those stats you were telling me on scoring there?
Yeah, so Ireland scored. There were 12 teams in the Olympics, separated in two groups. Ireland scored the fewest goals of any team. They scored only 4 goals over their 5 matches. They only gave up 11 goals, which was the second fewest of any team with a losing record. The next lowest was, or the lowest of a team with a losing record was New Zealand. They gave up 7 goals in 3 losses and 2 wins. But like we talked about, Netherlands really poured it on. 4 of those goals came in that game. So Aisha giving up just a shade over 2 goals per game, with some help from the defense on those goals, and then the offense just really struggling with only 4 goals over 5 games. Was not going to get it done. I believe they were shut out in 2 of those games. Um, just not a spectacular showing. To have the second lowest, or actually, it's funny. There are what is that? 6 teams with a losing record out of the 12. 4 of those teams had a -7 goal differential, and and Ireland was one of those teams and gave up only 11 goals. So it was tough. It was a tough group play showing for them, but like Jared said, McFerrin should be back in goal for them in just 3 years' time in Paris if they can once again qualify for the Olympics. Um, they're in a pretty good tournament grouping to land one of those qualifications. So we'll see if they can get another World Cup qualification for the 2024 Olympics.
And I was able to watch just a little bit of that Netherlands game against them, and I'll tell you what, you talk about an offensive juggernaut. That Netherlands team is all about the offense. I mean, they just attack and they keep coming at you in waves. And I think Aisha must have thought she was back there with no defensive line in front of her because they were putting a lot of shots on her. But she held in there as long as she could with it. Certainly, we've seen Jared on Louisville's field hockey team as well. Some Netherlands influence over the years and currently on the roster as well.
Yeah, I think Justine Sauer does an excellent job recruiting internationally with some solid talent, and we've seen where some of these players we brought from UofL have come from. Some of these countries that are still in the tournament. I guess this would be the quarterfinal round with Great Britain, the Netherlands, Ireland before. So it's nice to know that we are recruiting that top talent, and Justine Sauer knows what she needs to do with that, and hopefully we'll see with the next Olympics or future Olympics, we'll see more Cardinal greats from field hockey competing.
Certainly hope to see that indeed. And I think as far as some other things going on campus, you got some great news out of the lacrosse program earlier this week. Jared, I think you did a little bit on that for us there, as it looks like Scott Teeter's got 5 very good ones coming in. Louisville lacrosse players earning USA Lacrosse Girls High School awards. Brie Lang, Haley Rick, Marley Scott, Lauren Figgis, and also Tiffany Natoli joining them as All-Americans. So Scott Teeter getting some good stuff done.
Oh yeah, it's nice to see he continues to build up that talent level as he's continuing to pretty much rebuild this program from the ground up, which is a lot easier said than done, especially in the ACC. And you're seeing he'll go anywhere and everywhere to recruit some of these players and all around the country with this. I think if I saw correctly, we had like Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Georgia, um, Florida, maybe. So I mean, he's not just recruiting in one region; he's going wherever the talent lies, and he's pulling them in. And if we can see them have some solid freshman year this coming season, and maybe the return of a few of the seniors from last year, depending on how all that's going to work out scholarship wise and eligibility wise. Not only are they going to be a top 25 team again, but I think we're going to see some more ACC wins, and we should see them in the NCAA tournament.
Why don't we take a look at what senior day had for lacrosse a few months ago? Carolyn Blaylock, Sarah Blaylock, Allie Hall, Alice McNicholas, Sheila Scanlon, Maddie Birch, Jen Schaff, Rachel Flork, and Allie Archiondo. Uh, what do we know about them as far as who's going to come back out of these recognized seniors and who's gone?
Excuse me. There's a few that have expressed interest, and just from taking grad photos from a couple others, it helped me get a little more in depth. I know Allie Hall and Alex McNicholas will both be continuing their education with master's programs elsewhere. Nothing against UofL. Sometimes UofL just doesn't offer the master's program that they need. But I do know Rachel Florek has expressed interest in returning. So it'd be nice to have our top tier goalkeeper return. Both Blaylock's sisters have expressed interest in returning, and both of them have been team captains and leaders since the day they stepped foot on campus. I think Shayla Scanlon has shown a little bit of interest in coming back, and we've seen what she can do on the offensive end and just really overpower and overwhelm opposing defenses. So that would be a nice addition. Beyond that, I don't think Maddie Birch or Allie Archidiacono are returning, but between now and January, February, when the season starts, there's a lot that can happen. So we may see more return than expected, or we may see fewer return than expected.
Which brings me to the question for you all. Lacrosse is gaining in popularity. We see it every year, just increasing, but it's not currently an Olympic sport. So what do you guys think about that? It's been in the Olympics in the past, all the way back in 1948. And obviously, it's much more popular now than it was then. Uh, would you like to see lacrosse in the Olympics, guys?
I would. It's too
Yes.
right now. It's too much of an American sport, is why you're not seeing it in the Olympics. Just there's not enough international interest.
Yeah, and I think there's my perception of the Olympics has always been, and this is changing a little bit, but has always been that it tends to focus a little bit more on individual sports, on individual achievement. So team sports, very team-oriented sports, seem to have a little bit more difficulty getting admitted and staying admitted. When you look at the saga of softball and baseball, for example. Um, so I wonder if that's making it a little more difficult to get a sport like lacrosse added to the roster of sports. So, um, I'd love to. I think it's a great sport. It's a lot of fun to watch. I'd love to see it on that level. But I think it's got a challenge ahead of it to get there, both because of the reason that Jared gave, and that it's a team sport. It's just a little more difficult to get in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it has going for it is how fast paced it is.
Mhm.
People love handball, right? Because nobody watches handball throughout their 3.5 years outside of Olympic season,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I mean, maybe people in other countries do, but not in the U.S. But people in the U.S. really like handball because it's fast. They can draw parallels to some really popular sports in the U.S., and that makes it entertaining for people to watch around the world during Olympic season. Lacrosse is another really fast-paced game. Um, the rules are not so obscure or so different from other sports that are already played in the Olympics that they wouldn't have a good way to um, have good onboarding for people to view. But I think the major problem that is going to happen with lacrosse is that it is a game that was originally invented by Native Americans right throughout North America, and it's incredibly popular, growing in popularity in the U.S. and Canada. But that's just it. It's really growing in popularity primarily in the U.S. and Canada, and that's not to say that won't change, but I don't think it's going to change over the next 3 years. This is not going to be added as a Paris 2024 new entry to the Olympics. Um, the U.S. or not the U.S. Is the U.S. in 2028? I don't remember. But 2028 games, there might be a conversation to be had, but I don't think it's on the docket to be added anytime soon.
Next one is France and then LA, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
2028. Yeah, I think so.
So North America hosting two major tournaments in back-to-back seasons
Yeah.
with 2026 World Cup and then LA Olympics.
We look forward to what will happen with that. Certainly, I know I enjoy watching my lacrosse on campus. I know a lot of you all do as well. Uh, Jeff, going way back early in the week here, we got some great news about volleyball as they ended up getting a verbal from Alana Bankston out of Omaha, Nebraska. That's a state that we're well familiar with, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know a whole lot about her. I haven't gotten a chance to go watch any video, but what did I say? She was 6'1", I think. Middle. She'll be arriving in 2023, I think I said it was. I don't have the information in front of me right now. Out of Omaha, Nebraska, which is, basically not quite, but close to home for Danny Busboom Kelly. Of course, her background with University of Nebraska. It's good to get one out of that area, out from under John Cook in University of Nebraska. So, we'll see as she develops. I mean, I guess she's going to be a freshman in high school just this year, so it's really early days. We'll see how she develops and is able to develop her skill set and see what her life will be.
2023. That's only 2 years away. Jeff, you're in the wrong year again.
I am. I'm still thinking it's 1984 or something.
He keeps not jumping on it here.
Dang it! I need more
Jeff,
coffee.
Come back to 2021. We need you in 2021. Come back.
Yeah, 6'1"
But
right-handed
it's
outside
still
hitter. It'll be exciting.
a couple of years away. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Certainly always good to see that the Cards are keeping that young talent coming in for the volleyball program down there. I was watching some volleyball on the Olympics, and I'll let you all go into this a little bit further on. But do you remember a young woman by the name of Jordan Thompson?
Yep.
I know that Cardinal fans will, because she played at Cincinnati and absolutely rode roughshod over Louisville the last time that she played them. I mean, really lit us up on 41 kills
Yep.
in 72 attempts. And it looks like she's doing some good things as well for the U.S. Women's Volleyball Olympic team right now as they took Arizona down earlier in the week. So, what's going on with them, Jeff? How is this team doing?
Arizona? You mean Argentina?
Argentina?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, I'm nation jumping while Jeff.
Yeah, I'm time jumping. Yeah, so the latest is that they actually lost their match this morning against the ROC. And in fact, Jordan Thompson went out of the match in the second set with a
Oh
kind of
no.
a twisted or sprained ankle. So her return is questionable, at least for the rest of the pool play. I think they have one more pool match to play against, oh, who did I see that was? Italy, maybe? Um, so still a
That's
good
correct.
chance. Yeah, still a good chance that they can get into the tournament part of the competition and have some success there. But it's going to be a little trickier without Jordan Thompson in there. She's been lighting it up there. She's had a great Olympics campaign so far. Um, as you know, and yes, I do remember that 41-point game. It was in Cincinnati, and I drove up there to watch it, and it was a 5-set thriller, and she was impressive to say the least.
I just remember, yeah, her just getting every set and
Oh.
going over and just slamming on the cards.
Yeah,
Big time. Certainly fun to watch. And hopefully she's okay. Hopefully she can come back out
Yeah.
and do some things. Because certainly when you have a weapon that powerful, you really don't want to keep it in the holster. So we'll wish her the best of luck on that. Uh, kind of looking at some other stuff going on around campus and things like that. You know, we are getting ready to roll into August, like Case mentioned to us earlier in the show about some things that are going on. So we're going to have some fall sports kicking into gear, guys. As August tends to be the month where that happens in Louisville, and we certainly look forward to when it does come down, as we'll get some action going underway. I think women's soccer starts it out, if I'm not mistaken here, going in against Ball State over at Lynn Stadium over there. Uh, not real familiar with a lot of what Ball State has, but I think with the Cards starting out with 4 straight games at home, Jared, it's a pretty nice opportunity for fans to get out in late August, mid August, and watch some Louisville women's soccer.
Yeah, you'll see Karen Ferguson Days does like to get a lot of those non-conference matches at home. It's kind of less hassle and less headache with the travel. It allows a lot of the newer and inexperienced players just a chance to play somewhere they're more comfortable at. You always want to keep the fans and the parents happy by playing matches where they can attend them. This one, Ball State, not too far away from here, and sometimes you'll see some of these. I don't want to call them lower caliber teams, but the ones that aren't in your big Power Five conferences might not have adequate stadiums, or may just be playing on something that's a glorified high school soccer field. So I don't mind playing at home, and for us, it's another opportunity to go out there and cover them, watch them in person. But I think the main thing really is just to be able to get some matches that the younger players can get some reps in and just feel comfortable playing at home for those first couple matches.
We've talked about this in the past as well, about this team that's going to be post Ekic, as Amina Ekic now, of course, playing here professionally in Louisville. There are some questions to be answered on this women's soccer team that I've got. And I think, Case, you could probably address some of those as well. Where are the points going to come from, buddy?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. Delaney Snyder is going to be your scorer. She was your scorer last year. But who's going to be that facilitator? Delaney Snyder's a great player. She hasn't shown so far. She's only a rising junior, but she hadn't shown so far that she's been able to create that much for herself. That said, she hasn't needed to really, because Mina Ekic has always been there. She's incredibly fast. She's pretty good with the ball at her feet, and she's a really good finisher. So she's definitely going to be at the front of whatever formation uh, Coach Ferguson Days decides to play. But how the rest of the formation is going to shape up is tough to say. We talked about it a little bit a couple of weeks ago. That 5 at the back was really limiting Louisville's opportunities to get forward. Without Amina Ekic playing 5 at the back is going to be kind of just depending on your defense to put up a bunch of clean sheets and then hope that you can sneak a goal somewhere on a counterattack. I don't know that the defense is really constructed to do that either, even if you do play a 5 wide back set. But I don't know. I'm interested to see in this first game against Ball State how the team is going to line up, both with who's in what positions and what formation they play in general. And I'll also be interested to see something that we haven't seen a ton of from KFD and UofL women's soccer in the past, but formational changes throughout the season. Typically, in that long preseason, the team kind of figures out what formation they're going to play, and barring any major injuries, they just kind of play that formation for the rest of the year. But this is a whole new era, like we've talked about many times, losing Amina Ekic. How you're going to play moving forward is going to be very interesting. And if something doesn't work for the first couple of games, do you go back to the drawing board and reset and try something new? So I'll be interested to watch that. None of the players on this team have played Ball State before. The last time Louisville played Ball State was in 2016. It was a 1-0 loss, but barring any transfers, I didn't check every transfers schedule and to see if they'd played Ball State. But Cardinal versus Cardinal, it'll be an interesting first game. As I'm looking at the time tick down, it's in 14 days, 7 hours, and 38 minutes.
Yes, a Saturday night contest against Ball State. Actually, 5 out of the first 6 games for Louisville women's soccer will be at home. You've got a Saturday, 2 Thursdays, a Sunday, a Thursday, and a Sunday all in there. And you take a look at these first 6 games here. Ball State starting at, and you've got Western Michigan, James Madison, Northern Kentucky, St. Louis, Western Kentucky. None of these really strike fear into my heart as opponents that are going to manhandle the Cards, guys. I'm thinking Louisville has a very, very good shot of starting at 6-0 on this season. Any thoughts on that?
Like Case mentioned, it's going to depend on what the offense does. Losing Ekic, you lost, I think, 90-ish% of your offense from last season, and a good 3/4 of your offense from her entire time at UofL. So there's a lot to replace. There's a couple teams in there, though, that have given the Cards a run for their money before, and I think Western Kentucky beat UofL in the spring portion of this most recent season. So they could easily do that again, depending on who's returning for them and what adjustments we make. St. Louis, at least on the men's side, has had a strong men's soccer program. I'm not too familiar with their women's soccer program, but I'd have to assume that they'd be pretty decent too. So you can't assume any of them are going to be a walk in the park. Otherwise, I mean, going in with the cockiness is going to cost you the match anyways. You really need to just treat every match like it's going to be a life or death type matter and really try and get some wins out of there.
I'm going to be bold and say that we do start the slate at 6-0 on that, and probably a tough game from St. Louis, but I think we can beat them as well. It all depends, as you said, though, who's going to be the one that's kicking the ball into the net for the Guards.
Yeah, you're going with the bold prediction there.
Yeah,
normally that's me, but I could see 5-1. It's a little hard seeing 6-0 unless if we can really see somebody step up early on and be that true scorer. And when Case mentioned the whole formation type ordeal, this team's not built to just handle a 5-back line right now, because you're going to need to put some more players forward and really press and try and create those scoring opportunities. And you've got some solid defenders back there. I mean, Sarah Hernandez has been back there since day one. Gabby Cazellas is entering her, I guess this would be considered her 6th year at UofL, and goalkeeper. You've got to trust some of your veterans that they're going to be able to handle what gets thrown at them back there and focus a little more of your time and energy on the offense.
That indeed, and I also think that one of the things that Louisville women's soccer is going to be very excited about is the fact that they will be having full attendance that we know of now. The only question is on that we will find out probably later more on this next week is with the Delta variant, guys. What kind of coverage are we going to get as far as media allowance, and what are going to be some of the policies put in place? Because I know they're very excited about having Lynn open up again. But do you think it's going to be a mask only thing, guys? Just some thoughts on that.
Man, with the way the numbers and reports have changed over the past 2 weeks, we're 2 to 3 weeks away from fall sports starting. I'm not sure any prediction is going to be able to be borne out with much confidence at this point. It's, who knows what's going to happen in 2 to 3 weeks right now with the way stuff's changed so quickly recently. It's hard to say. I would be, I'm I'm worried that we're approaching a hey, we need to start shutting things back down again. Probably less of a concern for soccer because you're outside, or field hockey as well. Uh, Press can be a challenge with that, but I would go as press and still sit outside if we need to. Um, Volleyball may be a little more challenging with it being indoors and tight quarters in L&N Federal Credit Union Arena. Um, yeah, I'm worried about what's going to happen here.
I think so, Case, and one of the things that we've also got to consider is the student athletes on this too, where we know the stringent controls that U of L had as far as helping their players combat and fight the coronavirus. We haven't heard a whole lot about that lately, but I think we're going to probably see some things redevelop at U of L, making sure that the players are safe.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jeff. It's just impossible at this stage to make any prediction that um, is worth making. Everything's just changing so rapidly. Things change really day to day from guidance perspectives across the state, across the country. Um, um, it's tough to say, and I don't want to put out a prediction that is um, immediately rendered foolish for being either too optimistic or too pessimistic. So I think we just ride with the times and see what we get and hope for the best for not just the students at U of L, the student athletes we want to see perform, all coaching staffs, families, fans, and just everybody around the country is just kind of holding their breath and seeing what is in store for us as the summer comes to a close. Um, Sooner rather than later, I think that it's going to get interesting as time goes on. So just kind of have to wait and see.
Stay tuned. Some more to follow. Got you covered on that.
Mhm.
All right, fellas. We've had a good show here today as we roll upon the noon hour. Anything else that we need to enlighten our readers on or bring up that I haven't covered?
So just one follow up. We did get a tweet from some of the U of L women's basketball staff. The U19 women's USA team did actually have a competition late yesterday. It was versus Spain and Guadalajara. This is an exhibition game. Peyton Verhulst did play. She played 27, almost 28 minutes, um, 11 points, 9 rebounds. So good showing there. She has the highest plus minus rating of anyone in the game, plus 23 for her time out on the court. Um, 5 2-point field goals, 0 for 4 from three, unfortunately, and then one free throw as well. So, pretty good showing for her.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just going over there as a freshman and doing that,
Mhm.
very excited about that. And I think it'll translate well to what she'll be able to do with the cards as well, guys.
Mhm.
All right. Let's go ahead and roll on into some final thoughts here. And Jeff, we'll let you go ahead and start them out with your final thoughts.
Yeah.
I think he just gave one.
Yeah, that kind of was what mine kind of was.
Well, I was going to let you continue to roll down the path with it there.
Yeah. The animals that are easy to take care of are wonderful. I'll say that. You know, 2 dogs, a cat, and a gecko. And they were all remarkably easy to deal with. So
You're saying those are easier to deal with than a 10-week-old Great Dane puppy? I'm
yeah,
shocked.
yeah. One of the dogs is attention needy. Scout is really wants attention all the time. So he's probably the worst of the bunch. But yeah, otherwise they're pretty. When you get dogs that both free feed and share food, it's just like, okay, throw some food out for them, and all right, you're all good, you know. So it's been kind of nice. I've enjoyed it.
All about him. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, it's great when it's easy.
Jared, final thoughts.
I'm still just enjoying the Olympics and watching all these sports that you kind of hinted on earlier, is that many of us don't get a chance to watch the rest of the year, and handball, water polo, rugby, many more. And I'm going to keep enjoying it for this next week until the Olympics are over, and hopefully the U.S. will kind of step it up. They're not performing nearly as well as they did from 4 years ago. I guess 5 years ago down in Brazil. But that's the way sports go. Sometimes upsets happen, and in order to stay competitive, you want to see these other countries also get better. But yeah, just keep enjoying the Olympics.
It has been a fun journey to watch these Olympics so far, and the multitude of channels that are available. If you're a cable subscriber, I'll find myself popping, over here to there to see which my best viewing option is and what I want to watch. And then sometimes I find there's nothing at all I want to watch at all, and so I'll go to another channel. But Case, final thoughts?
Yeah, I got a couple Olympic-related final thoughts. One's just follow up on the volleyball tournament. So just like field hockey, there are 12 teams in it. So that means that the quarterfinals indicate 8 teams will advance. It'll be the top 4 from each pool, and the U.S. has locked up a spot in the quarterfinals. They're currently in 3rd in their group on 8 points. China is in 5th in the group on 4 points, so they cannot catch them in the final match day. So USA guaranteed to advance. Italy's first in the group, so they've got a tough test ahead of them for sure. But they're definitely going to advance and play probably. Looks like they'll play either Brazil or Serbia, depending on how the top 2 from Pool A shake out and how the bottom 2 from Pool B shake out.
Brazil's
and my other one,
a good team traditionally, so we'll see.
Yeah, and then my other one is a tweet that I saw, which is crazy. Katie Ledecky, who won gold in the 800-meter freestyle, because of course she did. The reason I say because of course she did is because all time, the top 23 times set in the women's 800-meter freestyle are all set by one Katie Ledecky. So,
Wow.
Yeah. Just like when she won the women's 1500-meter freestyle, which was the first time that the women had been allowed to swim that distance for some reason. She has all the top times in that too, and she won that by like 5 seconds or something because she's insane.
She is amazing indeed in that water. Something else to watch. As far as the final thoughts for me, just kind of looking forward to a weekend of not doing a whole heck of a lot. Going to sit back and watch some Olympics and catch up on some other things. Continuing to hang in there health wise. I got some doctor's appointments next week so that they can figure out a little bit more what's going on with the old kidneys here. But for now, I'm feeling pretty good and able to do some stuff. So a lot better being here on the radio waves to talking with you all on a podcast instead of laying in a hospital bed, having people barge into your room with no apparent reason for coming in. So,
For sure.
Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will catch you here next week for the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast. And until then, everybody have a great week of it, and go Cards.